Hello everyone, this is Cyril Gruder. I'm a biological anthropologist, and today I'm going to talk to you about reciprocity. The question is, why do you scratch my back if I scratch yours? One of the most striking features of human societies is that we show extensive cooperative behavior between unrelated individuals. And one of the greatest problems for the biological and social sciences is to explain such cooperation. Why would an individual carry out a cooperative behavior that benefits another individual? All else being equal, cooperation would actually reduce the relative fitness of the performer of that behavior and should be selected against, right? But cooperation is a widespread phenomenon, it's everywhere. In a previous video, I explained that such behavior can be adaptive if it occurs among relatives. Individuals have a stake in their relatives because they share some of the genes with them. But what if it happens among unrelated individuals? So cooperation between unrelated individuals can evolve if an individual behaves altruistically but is paid back for their altruistic act at a later time. And this is reciprocity. So I do you a favor today and you return the favor at a later time. By the way, this is the Chinese character for reciprocity. So the idea of I scratch your back and you scratch mine dates back to the Scottish philosopher David Hume, who wrote in 1740, I learned to do service to another without bearing him any real kindness, because I foresee that he will return my service in expectation of another of the same kind. Now fast forward in 1971, Bob Trivers, an acclaimed evolutionary biologist, coined the term reciprocal altruism. We're simply using the term reciprocity here. So according to Trivers, reciprocity can evolve in a population when the actor and the receiver engage in repeated interactions. And reciprocity also assumes a contingent relationship between favors given and received. If an individual stops receiving from a cooperative partner, it should in turn stop giving to this partner. So what is necessary for reciprocity is a discrete time delay between favors given and received. This time delay can be short when you immediately return a favor, or long when you return a favor at a later point in time. Since Trivers proposed his theory of reciprocity, people have dedicated a lot of effort to finding examples of this form of cooperative behavior in species other than humans. But the empirical evidence of reciprocity in nature is actually somewhat scarce. Probably the best evidence for reciprocity in a tit-for-tat manner comes from interactions in which animals exchange services. For example, social grooming in some primate species. If an individual requires a certain amount of grooming, it can approach a potential partner and groom that individual for a brief period. And the groomed individual has then received a benefit that it can return. So that's reciprocity. Here there's a time delay between giving and receiving, but it's relatively short. Now, the groomed individual can also cheat and not groom back. But if the cheating individual needs further grooming, it would have to approach another individual and initiate a grooming bout and groom that partner first. And because of this, it usually pays to stay with the original partner and continue to groom them. This is one of the classic examples of reciprocity in animals. This is blood sharing in vampire bats. Vampire bats regurgitate blood meals to each other. They get the blood from horses and cattle, and individuals are more likely to give blood to bats that previously have provided them with a meal. So this is an example of strict reciprocity in nature. Now, why are reciprocal investments in non-human animals relatively uncommon? Well, some people argue that individuals might reciprocate over longer timescales without keeping an exact record of recent exchanges. Some people say that individuals exchange helping acts in different currencies. For example, some primates exchange grooming for tolerance. They groom a dominant individual, and in return, they are allowed to stay close to that individual. And some chimpanzees exchange meat for sex. Males transfer precious pieces of meat from hunted monkeys to females, and females mate more with males who offer meat. So by sharing meat with females, males can actually double their mating success. Another possible reason for the fact that reciprocal behavior is relatively scarce in nature is that animals may not have the cognitive capacity for reciprocal investments. So they may not have enough brain power to remember who did what and when and how many times. But animals may not have to compute the long-term benefits of reciprocal investments. Animals may simply rely on social bonds with loose emotional scorekeeping rather than strict mental scorekeeping. It's a bit like friendships in humans. So many primate species form such bonds, and these may be sufficient to explain the loose exchange of cooperative behavior in primates. So what are the mechanisms of reciprocity in humans? When it comes to close partners, people seldom keep tabs of costs and benefits in interactions with such regular or close partners. It would take too much energy to do that. So they rely on simpler forms of reciprocity much of the time. So here, reciprocity is based on social bonds or friendships with mutually positive attitudes. So for example, emotions such as gratitude can motivate altruism. But what about distant partners? Among distant partners or infrequent associates, we see a different mechanism. So here, tallying of favors given and received is very common. So here we tend to keep mental records of favors given and received, and then we react more strongly to inequities. So let me give you a couple of examples of reciprocity in humans. These are the Yequana. This is a group of horticulturalists living in Venezuela. They frequently help with the planting and harvesting in each other's gardens. So this is a way for households to deal with the risk of crop failures. Should their own crops fail, individuals can claim food from the gardens in which they assisted with planting. So according to this study, kinship explained a large proportion of labor exchange. So more closely related individuals were more likely to help each other in gardens. But in households with no close kin, arrangements were strictly reciprocal. Individuals repaid help during the same growing season in which they had received help. And here's another example of reciprocity in humans in a completely different context. Reciprocity has also been shown by professional basketball players. Um, the researchers here used data from logs of the National Basketball Association games and looked at the probability that a given player would assist another player in scoring a basket. Now, players who had received assists in the past tended to subsequently reciprocate their benefactors, and the probability of repayment was highest soon after receiving an assist. So how can reciprocity be evolutionarily stable in the face of deception? You could argue that cheaters would always exploit unconditional helpers unless they are able to detect cheaters and can control them. Now, reciprocal interactions in humans can be maintained with punishment and shunning. Shunning can take place through partner switching. If someone has cheated on you, you can switch partners and stop interacting with the cheater. And the cheater then incurs a cost by being left out without a potential interaction partner, right? Now, punishment is a very important control mechanism in humans. Punishment is a very effective and widespread mechanism that humans use to promote cooperative behavior. If you take a look at this graph here, you can see that humans show higher levels of cooperation in economic games when there are opportunities to punish individuals who do not cooperate. So without punishment, cooperation goes down over time. With punishment, cooperation actually increases over time. And we also see punishment systems in non-human primates. For example, these are rhesus macaques. In their society, dominant individuals punish subordinate individuals that fail to give contact calls when they discover good feeding sites. So when they don't share that information, they get punished. So today we've seen that reciprocity is an important organizing principle in human societies and to a lesser degree also in primate societies. Thank you for listening and see you next time.